I must say that thank you for the invitation on what's the operations of the company or companies involved in our forestry that can make us that.
Sure. And we're very happy to meet and to address those concerns. You used a word there that has had me cringe a bit, destruction. My colleague will share with you shortly that what is actually going on in the forest is it is not a destruction. That is the first statement that I would like to make that very clear. It's not a destruction. Every company that is operating, whether local or foreign based, they have certain codes of practice, they have certain laws that we monitor very strictly against, and they have to comply with that. Secondly, I would also say the reason why the word destruction is not relevant in this situation here is because we have been audited by several international agencies, independent agencies, and they have not found there to be any destruction. As a matter of fact, our deforestation rate still remains one of the lowest in the world, notwithstanding whatever you would have seen being peddled in the papers and so forth. So if I could at this time, I'd just like to invite Ms. Wolnott to speak to you on the issue of the extraction, the level of extraction that is going on, and to give you further assurance that it is not a destruction, as you so
No, sir. We would prefer to convey to you the concerns that we would have, so we can have one answer to those concerns.
Very well, no problem, sir. Sure.
Now, the word destruction was used just now. We think that it might be so. Perception could also be there could be some amount of truth in perception. But what we would like to know, to sort our fears or our idea that there might be destruction, is for the Forestry Commission to publish that contract that Charlie has. Because we think that, as we said before, we are not just representing a group here. We represent every environmental conscious or any person who is so inclined to look at the environment, because we see a lot of things that is going on now, climate change and all these kind of things. And we think by conveying to us those contracts, the arrangement, I mean publicly, not just to us, it would impress upon us the need that we want our government to do, is to practice good governance. We want to know, we want to have a hold on that operation, on one isolated operation, because it is our view that where those logs are being cut, our Amerindian brothers and sisters, that is their natural habitat. That's the very survival depends on those forested areas. And by saying to us what goes on in there, we will know whether or not areas or Amerindian communities are suffering because of these things. Because what we are seeing, and as they say, Peter, it's 1,000 words. It seems to be decimation of our forest. We want tangible, a legal statement or declaration that the contract or what that contract entails. Now, we are also saying that the government and by selling also have a corporate responsibility to this Guyanese community. And we want through the contract that you would have expressed to us, or more information that should be forthcoming to our citizens, we will be able to be the judge of whether you are being good cooperative citizens and managers. That should include also the Ministry of Natural Resources, obviously. And I guess as a sister body within the forestry, you can probably correlate with each other to get the kind of answers we are looking for. Now, cutting all of those logs, especially in the interior, threatens the very existence of not only the persons in those areas, the very existence of the people of this country and probably the generations to come. And one has to understand that ECHO has a large following within the school curriculum or the school area. A lot of kids are part of this. We teach them good environmental practices, solid waste, whatever you want to say. But our main concern is to know what that contract entails. We want to see that contract. We want to know whether or not they would have had a contract and all this kind of thing. Because on whether or not there's any gain being garnered from that work by the indigenous forces of those kind of areas. Because obviously they will need to rebuild what would have been damaged, because there must be damages when you have such a large scale of rebuild. So those are some of the concerns, and when you will explain some of those things to us, we may probably need to ask a question with regards to what is set for us.
No. Any others, or that's the end of it for now? Any others?
I think it will be a for now, because I have a concern, right? If you guys will permit me.
Sure.
I'm basically looking from a national standpoint, political standpoint, when we look at the magnitude of what Guyana operation is, and it's a foreign company, and we are quite aware that there are other companies involved in our forestry doing similar works. This will just force it to be made public. What we want to, as compared to the local investors, we would like to know the comparison, how many local investors are there in comparison to the foreign investors, and the magnitude of our local investors together as compared to see who, is really benefited the most out of our national resources. And we want to know also what the percentages is going to do towards the coffers of this country from those extras.
Well, thank you for your questions. If there are no others.
Yeah, I'd like to say something on this. I know that all the speakers have gone into it a bit, but my take is this. Our last president was hailed as the champion of the earth. We also had an agreement with Norway as far as our logging is concerned. Now we're seeing that there's so many trucks that are going through an area every day, taking out a certain amount of logs. Now surely that cannot be good for any country, because if you are taking out a certain amount of logs, they have to have time to grow back. Their saplings have got to go to replenish. And what is happening? Flying over Guyana, which we have done maybe 3 or 4 trips in the past year, you're coming in to land and greenery. All of a sudden, that greenery is disappearing and all you're seeing is clearing. That cannot be good. Because if you have that amount of clearing taking place that you can visually see, that means devastation. You didn't like the word destruction, but to me that's devastation and destruction. Your foresting is supposed to be a certain amount and time given for those saplings to grow back. The way we're doing is that we are creating dust bowls. With global warming throughout the world, we're already hot, we're below sea level, we need trees to breed. We cannot afford to be destroying our forestry at the rate that it is reported. So I am looking for some serious answers from you.
Two things I mainly want to find. One is why these companies got their duty free. Guyanese poor people in the water, ordinary cars. Guyanese don't get duty free. I keep wondering why they got to get duty free. Question two. How could you say that you're preserving the forest and you cutting all the time? What's the percentage that they are left for saying you preserve the forest? And how much have you done already this year? Cut from, as you said, that devastated, but rip from. What percentage you have left? What is it? You can't just cut it all the time and tell me that you're still preserving. That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm glad to get clarity.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to say, not solely on this issue per se, but it's a series of issues. For example, I see this problem linked up with the problem of marriage and similar problems. There's a problem in this country of non-accountability. And this is what we're focusing on. And in fact, my side, we're focusing on that. What we like to see, more accountability to the citizens. This is not a political exercise. In fact, every citizen should be concerned. In fact, even going further, I see all these issues, all these things that are happening. If I were the chief executive of this country, I would be embarrassed. And the take I have on this is if somewhere, somehow, it seems that some group within the team of the chief executive is trying to embarrass it, because there is no redemption for what I've seen concerning all of this. For example, things that should be public concerns are not public concerns. Things should be equity, as my brother said, concerning certain concessions to citizens and better concessions to exploiters. It's not right. So therefore, what I'm really asking, and you may not be able to do that because I know your limitations, but I'm asking a general question here, or a general message. Look, the citizens need more accountability. The citizens need to know when, for example, should be open books on many things, or be directed where the books are. Probably the books are open, but we need to be directed where these books are, so we can make, when we make, when we ask questions, when we informed questions, when we have discontent will be coming from data that we've studied. So please, all I'm asking, that we need more accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nothing? Okay. I will try my best to take them in the order which I recorded them. Forgive me if I jump and come back. The first thing I think that my friend across here was trying to impress upon was contract. You would like to see contracts made available. You would like to see documentations and so forth. Now, the first thing I must say is that, which I would have made a statement in the past, where I indicated that the Guyana Forestry Commission is governed by the Forest Act and the Guyana Forestry Commission Act. Under the Forest Act, any information that you wish from the Commission, and this will also address the accountability and the public information and so forth, any information that you require from us that is in a public domain, you write officially to the Commissioner of Forests. He has a certain amount of time to respond to you, to provide you with that information that you're asking for. Right? So that is the first thing I will say. As regards the making available the contracts, I'm not in a position at this time to make that contract available to you because there is no formal information before us requesting. And for our record-keeping purposes, we have to ensure that we receive information so that when information goes back out, it would have been channeled to the correct source. So I may hand you a document now, and then I have to hand it to 10 others and 12 others. So there obviously must be a system that must be in place, and the law speaks very clearly to what that system is. So I would encourage you now to make note of the fact that you can write the Commissioner of Forests, and he has to respond to you, providing you with that information.
I should not ask just for this group into that.
Yes, I know that.
Citizenry to see those things.
Yes.
There's a newspaper.
Correct. Now, when you speak about the citizenry and making it public, if you are aware, every time we are advertising areas, it is made public. We put it in the newspaper so that everybody knows the areas that we're advertising. They know where we're advertising it. We also put in that publication where they can come to inspect all of the documents relevant to that or those areas. So for you to try to suggest to us that we must publicize everything, we wouldn't be in a position to always do that.
Companies are not an area.
Right, but okay, sir. So you would require Baishanin. Another gentleman would like Baram. A third one wants this one. Are we just publishing all the time? We're not a newspaper agency, with all due respect. What we do is the mechanism is there within the law for you to get access to that information when you want it. And I've just alerted you as to how you can go about getting that information. So as regards the contract, it's not that we have anything to hide. Please, let me make that very clear. As regards the contract, There's a system, the law speaks to that system, and I would have to encourage you to utilize that system. So you would have to write us. And after you've written to us, we have to then examine the information that you're asking for to see if it contains any confidentiality. And so long as there's no conflict or privileged information there, we must provide it to you. So the contracts, I will not be able to make that available at this time, unfortunately. As regards your comment that you would like to see a hold on Barama's operation, sorry, Baishanlin, so sorry. That you'd like to see a hold on Baishanlin's operation, you have to understand that the same contract which I just referred to speaks to the issue that these people have the right by that contract to enter into a specific area within state forest and to do a specific percentage of extraction. They have that right under that contract. If the commission is to stand up now to halt their operation without the justifications as spelled out in the act, then we will be in contravention of that very contract. So whilst I understand the uproar and the concerns that you have in light of what has been revealed, you have to understand that everything has a process. So that if we would like to stop that operation, we must find legal grounds to do so. And at present, we don't have any, because they are within their contractual legal limit to do what they have been doing in terms of the harvesting. Now, I would now like to pass on one of the questions. There's a question about the cutting is threatening the existence of the people in the area. So I'd like to invite Mr. Khan to speak to you about our cutting cycles. Because as my friend was trying to allude to, it's not just a system of going in and taking out all of the time. There's actually a process, there's a system, a cycle that is in place that you harvest based on that cycle, and it is done in a conservative manner. So that's what.
Thank you, JC. And thank you for your question. I just for some clarity as it relates to the way we harvest our forest in Guyana. First of all, I want to point you to a document. And this is on our website, Code of Practice with Timber Harvesting. The Code of Practice with Timber Harvesting outlines certain conditions and certain requirements for any stakeholders who are operating within the state forest area to follow. Let's start with the amount of trees extracted or harvested from our forest in any given area. And let's stick to a big company operation. First of all, the company's operation will be determined based on area size, and we come back to the contractual arrangement and all these different things. But then, before the company can commence harvesting operation, they will have to prepare ESIA for the area. We will also have to prepare a management plan for the area.
Sorry, if I can just, the ESIA is an environmental assessment. Okay,
sorry about that. They also have to prepare an annual operation plan for the area. The management plan will outline what the company intends to do, let's say for the next 10 years. The annual operational plan now will outline yearly activities. Now, for the big area now, the Code of Practice speaks that at least 4.5% of the concession area must be put aside as a biodiversity area, intact forest, representing all different forest types. That is 1.2. So that is a must. A minimum of 4.5%. The other part of it now, based on the stocking of the area, the company, after inventory and after collecting data from the forest area, they will have to model it using a growth and yield model, which the GFC also, we have a growth and yield model that model our forest regeneration, natural regeneration, all these different things. And based on that stocking, the company and the Forestry Commission will agree on a cutting cycle. And imagine you have this as a concession, this outline here. And if the company agrees with the Forestry Commission, you'll be working on a 25-year cutting cycle. It means the net productive area, when put aside the biodiversity area, the buffer zones, and all the protected areas that we want to protect, you will have to divide the area now into 25 parts. And every year, they're only allowed to work in the area that approved in the annual operational plan. So if you go around in a cycle, my friend. So if this year they work this area here, area 1, only after 25 years they can come back to area 1. And I want you to note, on a 25-year cutting cycle, a company can only take out 800 and 33 cubic meter per 1 kilometer square, which equals to 100 hectares. Which come down, if you come into the unit area, 1 hectare, which is just over 2 acres, it can only take out 8.33 cubic meters.
This is roughly 3 trees.
Which is about 3 trees. Imagine you have a 2-acre plot of land, and you can only come in here with all the trees standing there, all the trees, all different, and you can only take out 2 trees. And then you gotta come back after 25 years to enter back into that area. That is what we're doing there. We're doing selective logging.
That's interior.
No. I'm coming back to this, because I want to throw a suggestion to you guys too. So that is what we call in the end we're doing selective logging. So we go around with this. The code of practice also speak to, apart from the cutting cycle, to those companies operating on a 40-year cycle, they're taking out 1,333 cubic meter for 1 kilometer square. Then 4th year, then they go back to the area. For a 6-year cycle, it's 2,000 cubic meter over the 6-year period. Alright? Now coming to the other point of it now, is that apart from just going to the forest and cut, we also have conditions as relates to diameter size. If a tree doesn't reach 35 cm and above, the concessionaire can't cut it. Unless seek special permission because they need to cut it because of some special project, like say they need a special pipe for some project or so. And only then, if they get special permission then, but then you don't really give that special permission easy. The fact is you got to cut certain diameter size and above. The other thing is that if the trees are between 35 cm and 40 cm, they have to respect a proximity rule, meaning that if you fell one tree here, and the next one is just 6 meter distance away, they can't cut it, despite it's a green tree or purple tree. They get to be at least 8 meters away before they fell in the other tree. And all of this to reduce the gap, because we know that we depend on natural regeneration, and if we create big gaps in the forest, what will happen, you'll find that grass, vine, and other things will grow up, and you open up the forest to more sun, and then those species what will need sun shade to survive will basically take a long time to regenerate back because they got to wait until the canopy closes back and so forth. So all of this, there's a lot of mechanism in place and system in place to monitor this. Now, how will we monitor how much these guys are taking out based on the cutting cycle? One thing to note, as I said just, based on the cutting cycle, they will agree on the area size per year. Based on the area size, we allocate a quota. As I just mentioned to you, in a 25-year cycle, 1 kilometer square, you can only take out maximum 833 cubic meters. Based on this now, we now will calculate this now with an average of 3 cubic meters per tree, and we allocate what we call a log tracking tax. Again, it's one, maybe the only country in South America with a complete log tracking system. We basically on a national level, so we issue now log tracking tax. So if we say, okay, 833 maximum, divided by 3, we give the company a maximum of summa tax, so they can't cut more tree. And as they started to cut and bring in their production now, we started to look at the tree size. If the tree size go past 3 cubic meters, we know that the amount of tax that we issue, we know that when to make it controlled, because we don't give them 100% one time. We start giving like 25% of the tax. And as they bring in the production now, we can start seeing the trees some are bigger than 8 cubic meters, so we can do the reduction balance. And then issue more tax. For all of this, I want to tell you guys, I'm going to end here, Jason, is to make, we just mentioned to you that the controls that we have in place and the allocation in terms of the number of trees. Alright? Often you hear that persons say, well, so many trees or truckloads of timber coming out from the forest. But how companies operate, just like the rice farmers, if you're harvesting, you're heaping up everything at one location, maybe you got to wait until the weather to truck, especially logging operation, and then you start to truck. So what I want, and I'm going to end by saying this, I really appreciate the question. And also, because of the limited time, we want to give you the opportunity to see more what's happening in our forest. And of course, the group is really interested in the environment. And we should start work together in partnership. Plan 1 to field trips, let's go out there, let's explain our system, let you see what's happening in transit. Not only when the auditors coming from overseas, they're going with us in the forest. You come, let's go, we can do a field trip, we can plan a special trip for the group. We go back and see the tagging system, you see how they cut the trees, the distance apart, and verify it. And one thing to end up with, across this country, we have 39 fixed forest stations, strategically located across the country with 10 mobile stations. The mobile stations, they're moving with the company's operation, especially big companies. So what's happening on the ground now, we have 220 forest officers. We have officers living in these big concessions 24/7. they're responsible to just monitor what's happening within this concession, everything that's coming out from the concession. Give you a removal document. You can, of course, you can't travel without, the law says if you're traveling without a removal document, it's illegal. So there's so many things that we have in place, but unfortunately, it is not coming out. Maybe we're not doing enough.
Enough PR, maybe. Okay. Thank you, Tashreef. Let me jump back into the fray. It is very easy to just see trucks passing with lumber, and because of the numbers, you would just assume that, well, this must be disastrous, something very untoward must be going on here. But as my colleague would have indicated, we have all these very stringent monitoring systems in place. Every tree that is harvested, my colleague failed to mention, it has to be tagged with the same tracking system he was mentioning. So that when they produce to us, which they have to, by law, they have to produce monthly reports as to what they would have extracted. And we compare all of those figures based on what we inspect on its way out. And then if we have any concerns, any suspicions, we can go right back to the stump that they would have harvested. It has to be tagged. If it's not tagged, that's an infraction on the law. We take action against that. When they are transporting it, when all those trucks, today's newspapers, all those trucks that you see there, those trees have to have the tags. If the tags are not on it, the number that is on the tag must be written on the tree, so that at all times we can verify whether or not, if for example it is Baishanlin, we must know that Baishanlin is still within its quota that they're harvesting. We would know where the produce is coming from, and we know how much. So it is very easy to just look at a picture, which is, yes, 1,000 words. It's very easy to look at a picture and get carried away just a little bit when you don't have all of the facts. So at this time, I would now like to invite Ms. Bolenard to speak to you on the local investors, foreign investors, the Norway agreement and the deforestation.
Before you move
Sir,
on,
yes, sir.
you just said that there are accountability for the trees,
Yes, sir.
by the tax,
Yes, sir.
whatever it is. Whatever mechanism there are there, are you saying that it's foolproof?
If I'm saying that, that is.
That's foolproof.
Well, sir.
Simply because what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is that you may submit some tags to state where this area is where this route. You say you have monitors living on the locations, right? So I shouldn't use this word compromise, but how effective is the correlation
Between the two. Okay, I would say, let me start and then I'll let you comment. I wouldn't try to sit to give any impression that any system is foolproof, right? Because it's created by humans and it is human to err. But having said that, we have several checks and balances after that stage, which includes random auditing, random inspections. We have several other systems in place so that even if it falls through one gap, it is very unlikely to fall through all of them, because there are different systems, and all of the systems, the officers that are on the ground, even the company themselves, they're generally not aware when we're coming to do random audits, for example. We just show up and we have the authority, in the same contract, we have the authority to enter and to carry out random inspections based on the information that they will provide to us and what we know they are supposed to be working to.
Question, before, for example, you say for 2014, how many random checks you say they've had so far?
Okay.
All right. One will always want to say the system is not strong unless the person who are monitoring and enforcing the system is strong. The reason I'm saying that, and then we come back in terms of compromise and all these different things, and just to extend to what JC was saying just now. Our system is set up in such a way, the structure, that yes, we have different officers responsible for different locations. They have a chain of command based on the operation. You find that the officers, let's say in the fields will be their reports and submissions will be verified by their supervisors, and the chain will continue. Then also within the monitoring framework of the GFC, we also have a auditing and extension unit, and these guys operate out from Central, where they will pick up this report periodically, randomly, and then they will go back as within the department to audit back. These same guys in the fields and their supervisors work to make sure that yes, what you reported. If you say that, well, this guy cut the green artery at this point here, and everything is georeferenced with the GPS coordinate of this, and within this block which is approved, we want to go back, they will go back and verify it randomly. And with any sampling, sometimes you go back, it might be difficult to do 100% sampling, but any statistic tell you. If you do random sampling and you do so much and based on the accuracy of the findings and all these different things. So we have systems in place. Secondly, is that we also have an auditing department within the GFC which work and report to the board. They also go back and do their auditing. And then just to make it short again, under the Norwegian agreement, we also subject it to our party auditing where they will come, select randomly, then go and spend time in the field and verify back our work.
That's pretty constant. I'm going to take one more question and next week. And Rustin is available if he wants to be
No, but just give me a quick chance to this question, because what I find striking is that he mentioned that the system that I have put in place is that for every tree, right, every 3 trees is equivalent to 2 acres of land. Is that what you said?
No.
I said average.
For every 2 acres of land.
For every 2 acres of land, only 3 trees are allowed to be extracted.
An average.
An average. So it makes me wonder now how many acres of land bison have been extracted from the mountain trees you've seen here. Because if it's for every 3 tree, it's 2 acres. That would be next.
All of this.
And it's reason for us to be worried.
We've published all of the statistics. For me to just sit here and give you statistics right now, it would neither be here nor there for you at this time. So, because you can't judge it just based on that. You have to also look at the area size, and then you map it to the annual allowable cut. And all of these things are in keeping with our sustainable harvesting. It's keeping with more preservation than plundering of the forest. And my friend sitting next to you alluded to the fact that we do have a Norway agreement. Norway is auditing us on a regular basis, and they have not found any serious defect that could warrant to say that there is a destruction, so to speak, of the forest. So
we'll start off by where JC left off in terms of the presumed idea that there is destruction in the forest. And I always believe it's a good way to start by giving some background information. For 3 years now, we've been engaged in an agreement with the government of Norway. And what that has required for us, and this will give you the kind of evidence I'm sure you want to hold on to, it has mandated for us every year to carry out a national independently executed audit of our systems and of the deforestation rate. And you would have seen, I'm sure many of you would have read articles in the media that would have reported on national levels of deforestation rate, which would have concluded on the drivers of deforestation. We would have concluded since 1990, we have gone back to do these assessments. And we've conducted assessments from 1990 to 2009 as one block. We've conducted assessments for 2009 to 2010. We've conducted another assessment for 2010 to 2011. And we've recently released in March of this year the assessment for year 2012. Those assessments would have concluded that the forestry sector is the lowest driver of forest area change in the country. In the year 2012, we reported only 240 hectares cleared out of the entire 21 million hectares of our land stock. And let me just briefly explain how this is done, because I think by understanding how it's done probably gives you a clearer idea that we are sure when we say that we stand by that number. And then I'll explain to you the kind of scrutiny that we've opened ourselves up to have that number verified. We purchased for a very expensive price satellite imagery over the whole of Guyana at 5 meters resolution. So there are satellites orbiting the Earth, and we specifically tasked these satellites to cover Guyana. and in a height, over a height of 5 meters. So it's quite low that they're taking these photos. And my colleague over there, the young lady who pointed to, I often do this myself. When I fly into Guyana or over Guyana, I always look for a closed canopy. It makes me feel happy when I see a closed canopy. These satellites check for just that, for the extent of closed canopy that it is seeing, and contiguous blocks of 1 hectare of forest. And it tallies this in the system that we have developed here at GFC, working with international consultants, to compute how many broken hectares of forests happen every year. So because we've been monitoring this from 1990, we're able to know for every additional year, we're currently doing the 2013 assessment, and the year after that we'll be doing the 2014 assessment. We can confidently say that those figures we've released, which is up to the year 2012, reported that we've only lost from the forest sector 240 hectares out of 21 million hectares of our lands cover. Now we don't stop there. When we report that figure, we release that report for 1 month to stakeholders to criticize, to give comments, to ask for clarifications. It's released for 1 month in the public, and we publish little advertisements in the papers, inviting people to have a look at the report and ask us any questions they want, internationally and locally. People do ask questions. And what we do after the 1 month period is that we revise that report, clearly stating all of the questions which would have been asked in that report, and give answers below every question integrated within that report on what would have been asked with regards to our methods and our results. We've done this 3 times now. We don't stop there. We release that report that integrates the results and that also integrates the answers to the questions which would have been raised in that public review period. We first started releasing that report for 2 weeks. We now started releasing the report for 1 month. For the year 2012, we released a report for 1 month for anyone to say or ask anything they would like to ask. But we don't stop there because we cannot. Because the question which will always come up is that we are generating these figures. How are we confident that we're not under or overestimating the figure for some ulterior motive? How we address that is that, and it's part of the agreement with Norway, is that Norway hires, they pay for and they contract an independent auditor to come into Guyana. They don't tell us what they're coming to check or where they're coming to check or what they want to see. They come and they spend 1 full week here in the forest. And before that and after that, they can ask us for anything, any part of that system of monitoring deforestation. And we have to provide it to them. They have done it for 3 years now, and they've come and they've scrutinized everything that we have published and every part of that system that we have created painstakingly and very expensive as well. That put out that number. And they have concluded for every year of the 3 years we've done it for, that our systems are strong, that our deforestation rate we've reported is correct, and therefore that the breakdown of deforestation by drivers is also correct. Therefore saying that the 240 hectares we've reported for 2012 and the system we've created to continually monitoring deforestation, it's strong and internationally credible. And the name of that company is Norske Veritas out of Norway. When that report is finalized, we also make that report public. The government of Norway makes that report public. And we don't stop there, because that talks about deforestation rates. People will ask, and we have been asked, you're looking over the forest. There are things that might be happening under the forest that are not showing up on those satellites. We're aware of that because our forest can close up so fast. You from the environmental side will know if a small trap is put in the forest. You fly over a couple months after and it's knitted back. So you don't know what is happening underneath there. Our way of addressing that has been for 2 assessments so far, called independent forest monitoring, audited against 42 criteria and indicators that we're tested against. We've set up criteria that allows for no satellite-based monitoring this time, but for field-based monitoring, ground assessments, and audits to be conducted by an independent third party. And the company GFA Consulting Group has been out of Germany is the company that has conducted that audit. So they come and they don't say where they want to check. They show up, they spend usually about 2 weeks here in Guyana, and on the day they want to go, they say, we want to go here. We have to take them there. This is I can't list all 42 criteria and principles out to you, but a couple of them are. Is the log tracking system complied with? Are annual and management plans complied with? Do you have maps for the areas that you are working? Do you relate closely to the communities that you work with? Do you protect the traditional use and customary rights of those Amerindian villages and Amerindian communities that you work within and around? And I know some of you, I know you're very interested in the environment, so you would want to know what those 42 criteria indicators are. And those are published, the 2 reports. It's called Independent Forest Monitoring Reports, years 1 and 2. They're on the GFC's website. And I'll let you know, as JC would have mentioned, we don't pretend to be perfect. In the last assessment, we performed excellently in 38 out of the 42 indicators. And we've identified room for improvement in the additional few indicators. And we continue to work and aspire to be able to pass all 42 at some midterm stage in the future. So what I'm telling you here, it might come over as just trying to say that we know what we're doing and we're certain we're doing it correctly. But I would not believe if someone were to tell me that, unless that person also says that this is the independent source that came to check as well, and this is what they found. And all of these reports, we do not hesitate in making these reports public. In addition to the fact that under the agreement with Norway, as well as other agreements, it is required for us to make these reports public. And if you require for us to send you a printed copy of this report, I will agree that we can do that as well, if for some reason you can't download it on the internet. So I will tell you that JC's initial reaction when we were asked, when it was said to us that there was massive destruction of the forest, we always hesitate in not getting too passionate in our response, because we've painstakingly gone through many processes to show and to prove to ourselves that our systems are valid, and if they aren't, where can we improve? So when we receive criticisms, we always try to pattern them so that they're constructive criticisms. And when we feel as though all of the information is not coming out, we usually fault ourselves and say, maybe we should be putting more information out there. Maybe what I just said, we have not as yet explained it in that way to our close primary stakeholders in the public. But at least this opportunity here today gives me a chance. I've never engaged directly with ECHO, but it gives me a chance to share that with you. And I do hope, like my colleague Tasrif mentioned, that we don't just wait for these opportunities when there's a progress action outside for us to be sitting across the room from each other. But I appeal to you that not everything that might come over as being credible in the first instance of hearing it ends up being credible. There is usually a lot more that we need to understand about the system and the process and about the country's forest. And I'll close just by saying this so that at least we can internalize the scale of what is before us. We have 21 million hectares. 18 million hectares of that is forest. About 12 million hectares of that is controlled by the state. About 6 million hectares of that has been allocated for primary timber harvesting. And about 1.1 million acres of that total size has been allocated directly to community forestry organizations in the form of state forest commissions. So just that, when we see 10 trucks and it equates to maybe 20 or 30 hectares of harvesting, it's way bigger than that. So whilst we might see what is happening in a microcosm, really we need to just be a little, I'm not saying that we're insular, but a little less insular about the gamut in which we consider our context, which really is at national scale.
She didn't address the issue regarding the foreign investors and local investors, and that was hoping.
The foreign and well, I'm not sure if we will have that, if we will have those figures at this time, but what I would want to say on the issue of foreign investment is that, first thing, the Investment Act of 2004 makes it very clear that Guyana is a free and open market for investment. there's no limitation on investors or the number of investment that can be carried out. That is the law.
Sorry, my bad.
It doesn't, and that's the next point I was getting to. There's no discrimination between foreign and local investors. All of the allocations that would have been made, whether to foreign or to local, as I said before, it would have been advertised. It would have been, you give me some numbers?
Yes, from the last reported update of June of this year, there are 508 state forest commissions allocated to small and mid-sized enterprises. Local, those are like UBFBA, Region 10AF, Region 10, Araima, KNRO, and so on. So that's 508 state forest commissions that have been allocated. We have a total of 26 TSAs, of which, if my memory serves me correctly, 6 of them are foreign. The rest of them are locally. And we have wood cutting leases for 2 concessions. So that's the scale. Out of those 508 state forest commission, we have about 1/3 of those allocated to community forestry organizations, which are the groups of people who work together. People like Region 10 and UBFPA and Guyana Forest Lovers Association. I would mention also that as somebody raised the issue of Amerindian brothers and sisters and Amerindian title plans. Amerindian villages and communities also have rights to access to the state forest resources. So when we advertise and we publicly release the list for vacant areas for state forest commissions, Amerindian areas, whether they have titled areas to them, to those villages or not, can also apply. And I'll quote the case of Oriala. They have titled area, but they also have a state forest commission.
We don't use to concession in Amerindian lands.
And to back that up even further, the forest act that I referred to earlier, it preserves and recognizes those traditional Amerindian rights, the ability to enter the forest and take trees for their traditional uses and so forth. All those things have been retained under the legislation that we are governed by.
And I probably could point you, if you wanted to put the exact area that is allocated to large concessions, small concessions. We release a forest sector information report. We've been releasing this since 1998, sorry. And here you will have a breakdown from 2006. How much goes to State Forest Commission, how much goes to timber sales agreement, and how much is unallocated out of the total allocation of State Forest Estate. And we update this every 6 months. And this information is publicly available on the GS's website. So if you want to find the information on that, maybe how much information is allocated to Region 10 in the form of SFPs, you can let us know what kind of breakdown you need, because we have provided that to others before.
Would you be the agency that can tell us how many indigenous communities are more or less contiguous to the sharing operations?
We probably would have that information, yes, but I'm not sure if we can be able to.
Because it has a lot to do with our organization, more or less has a lot to do with less political and more environmental.
I understand.
Right?
So then next week, we could arrange a meeting. We have the map.
I think that's a good suggestion. So we will prepare when we invite the media on Monday. We will have a map put up behind our head table with a map of the concessions showing the surrounding and adjacent indigenous villages and communities.
And just a quick explanation from my brother. You had indicated earlier that now what is about 5 cm. 5 cm is cut, unless in exceptional circumstances. What is exceptional circumstances?
Okay, as I said, except, but then it's not an easy approval because we have to justify why. But if someone wants to cut piles, for example, for construction, and the end use, we recognize it's get 35 cm. And I can tell you, you can check the records. We don't really approve it. We tell them to use 35 and above because we don't want to use smaller trees because the durability and all is different. But some operations may need a specific, I'd say, between 30 and 35. And a good example, for example, like the Pokwani group. They receive an order from GPL and GTNT for Walba Port. The guys them came in to make justification that if we got 35 and above trees, we get a scope shaded down to a GPL pole at the end of this size. So they're asking for between 37 and 35. Because they were considered as a lot of waste. But then also because they're doing it manually, they gotta shave it down too. So with this here now, we give special permission because we recognize it for a national project, and one is for community development because the community, who's involved in this. So those are what we will consider special cases because of the end product, and it's not going for sawmill, cutting small trees for sawmill in there.
It's a nationalistic thing, not export.
Not the export.
Not for export.
Question. Can we then say that leaving here today, that you have made it clear to us that if any company were violated in terms of reference, in terms of their responsibility to your office, responsibility to the environment, you would have known and you would have taken action?
Yes, we would say that. So long as of course, you have to give and take some time for the information to get from the interior to us here. But even those that are on the ground, they have the authority to take certain actions. And there's a limit on the amount of actions that they can take. So the information has to come back to their office for us to then instruct them to do other things. But if the information gets to us that there is a clear contravention of the Forest Act in any way, we will act immediately upon it. We've always done so in the past.
So given the give and take for time last, you could say today's date, you know of no violation, and if you know of any violation, you will have taken steps to stop.
Yes, sir.
We know of no violation.
We know of
We've
no
not acted
violation.
on.
We know of no
That's
violation.
You know, that's
Yes, we know of no violation
We have not acted on.
in relation to the issues that have you before us now, that we have not acted on.
So the ministry did not respond to any higher order. It stops there.
You mean forestry?
But we can talk about
These
GSC.
actions that you said you take.
Yes.
We can talk about GSC. We have a clear
The
mandate.
actions are within the Forest Act. We can go, we can seize, we can detain, we can shut down the operation, we can take away the
So
equipment.
not
Those
the
are the
ministry
sort of
involved.
actions. It's not a Ministry of Natural Resources
It's having
responsibility. It's a forestry responsibility. When we become aware of it, it's not a case where we have to ask the minister whether we must act. The legislation is very clear. So long as there's a breach, we act. So we're not aware of any breach at this time in relation to the issues that have been in the media that could cause us to act. Because I would have answered the question earlier when you asked about shutting down of the operation, and I said very clearly that we're not aware of any legal ground upon which we can stand to shut down this operation presently.